But when you really get content with just being by yourself, you are not willing to settle for good enough. I don't want
wind up by yourself.
I don't want good enough. I want what's good for me. And what's good for me ain't gonna always feel good to me. And I have to know the difference.
Welcome to Concrete Reality TV, where we strive to know more and do more with what we know. My name is Efrem acapella.
I am your boy, Cutta.
I'm your girl, Danny.
And you know your boy, infamous K. Fred, sitting right here, ready to rock and roll. Let's pop it.
Concrete Reality.
All right, so tonight's topic, we're going to dive right on in. It is the dating matrix, the red pill or the blue pill. Do you want the most authentic version of people when you are meeting them? Do you want them to kind of put on a show, tap dance for you and bring that representative? What do y'all think? Red pill or blue pill? Danelle, you came up with this. What about you on these?
The red, which one is the blue?
Red pill is most authentic self, keeping it 100% as much as possible. And then blue pill is that watered down representative of people.
Well, I'm wearing red, so I'm going with the red team. I'm going to go with the red team. And the reason why is because, in my opinion, sometimes we want the representative because it's easier to swallow. But in genuineness, everybody wants to be loved for who they are. But we send this watered down version of ourselves because we also want to be accepted. Well, I've come to the point that if I have to pretend to be what you love in order to be accepted, I'd rather be single. So I'm at a point in my life now where I'm taking the red pill all day because that's the only way I'm going to receive what I'm really truly seeking. And that's genuine love, someone to love me for myself. And they can't love me for myself unless they see me, the real me.
I can relate. Okay, Fred, what about you? You're a red pill person, a blue pill person?
I think a bit of both. I think, over years you mature. And with the maturity comes different choices and different decisions. But ultimately, that's interesting, Efrem. I mean, I'm going to leave it right there. I choose both.
Okay, cool. Cutta. Man, I think I know you, but I'm curious about what your thoughts are on this one.
I've always been red pill for the most part. I understand that men and women, we date on different frequencies, different purposes, different. We also have different foundational reasons as to why we date in general. But I saw early on in the dating world what the representative would get you versus what the red pill, the authentic person would get you. For one, you had to deal with less lying. And I'm talking about from yourself because you can't stop other people from lying to you. But you being 100 with yourself kind of matters the most, especially like to me, because at the end of the day, I don't remember lies well. So me running game, lying and BSing, never been really my style. Because I saw what it got you. Whole bunch of drama comes with that. So I'm definitely red pill, but of course we'll, get into the other stuff later on in the show. But yeah, that's my answer.
For me, I'm definitely a red pillar. I always like presenting who I am. That way we can flesh out the, inconsistencies, incompatibility that we may have between us, expectations on the table. Don't waste my time because it's, valuable. I don't feel like going through the whole, I usually, even on first dates with me when I was dating, I would put things on the table on purpose just to see how people gonna react. I'm like, hey, we're gonna talk about this. I want to see how they're gonna act, how they're gonna respond. That way I can kind of flesh out their personality because, just to kind of cover up that or, reveal that representative people usually throw at you. I'm like, let me go ahead and flesh that on out and start having these deep conversations right off the bat. I don't even wait. First date, we talking about politics, we talking about religion, we talking about all that just to see where they head at. And then if they, get pissed or whatever, I can see that right off the back and know what I'm dealing with. And then same thing for me. I might not be their cup of tea as well. It might be too much. So I always try to stick with the red pill.
Now, when is there too much red pill? Because, sometimes you hear a lot of times, don't tell them everything right up front. Is that watering down the genuineness? Is that kind of sort of putting a representative out there? Because I ain't going to tell you my whole story because it might scare you off. I mean, is that kind of not taking the red pill? I mean, because some people feel like if they're not lying about major issues, they can just kind of like your resume. I remember when I was being trained on my resume and how to formulate a resume, and you didn't have all the job experience. And I remember the lady in my training class, she was like, have you ever babysat your brothers and sisters, your nieces and nephews, your little cousins? I'm like, yeah. She was like, okay, well, you got time management experience, you got food preparation experience, you got childcare experience, and all this stuff goes on your resume. And that goes as real experience. And so sometimes we embellish what we put out there, even if you having those tough conversations, because we still watering down the genuineness.
True.
So
yeah, that is true.
But what you're talking about, and this is where I say it's a bit of both. It's not red or blue pill, because it's this one thing in between when you're talking about dating and getting to know a person, and that's trust, right? So you're not going to entrust them with the most personal parts of you right off the bat. And just because you don't do that doesn't mean that you're not being authentic, right? Because if you're really true to yourself, then you understand that everything comes in layers, right? And trust has to be earned and gained on both sides. So the representative is always going to be there, because you're not trying to go into dating, you know what I'm saying, exposing all your baggage and shit. You know what I mean? And that's with anybody. So you're always going to put that best foot forward with the representative until through the dating process, you establish the trust. And then through the trust, it opens up into the friendship to go, hey, I can divulge this to you because I know that whatever information I give you about the most personal parts of me are going to be kept in confidence, or I'm not going to be judged, right? And that's what leads to, I think, what Danelle was saying earlier, that total acceptance of someone, right? But that just doesn't come off the back in this black or white, red or blue pill, right? It comes over time and in layers.
As interesting.
No, but then also at the same time, I'm sorry, go ahead, Cutta.
Now I was going to touch on what K. Fred said. In my experience, the more authentic you come off, you kind of give people that level of comfortability that, hey, it's okay for me to be open with this person because they're authentic. They're revealing things to me that they don't have to. So the more open and honest you are with who you are, you kind of give that person an angle to be able to say, hey, well, you know what? I don't have to be as close with this person because this person does not come off as judgmental. They're not, ridiculing everything, every statement that I make. They're making fun of me. They're judging me. They're, poking. How we poke at people sometimes. Oh, you said this. Well, I wouldn't do that. And coming off real snobbish, and that's what makes people closed. In my experience, that's just being more sociable.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
Now, what about this? Just, two parts of my response is part one, K. Frey, you were saying that as the relationship develops, you start to build that trust in one another. But how do you feel if someone has kept something from you that could have possibly changed the level that you wanted to build with them had you known up front? What is expected to be? What is something that you should share up front, and what shouldn't you share up front?
What? So man, that's an interesting question, because now you're talking about expectations. Okay. And I think sometimes when we're dating, we put people in this box. of our expectation, meaning they got to do, they got to be, they got to say in order for me to be comfortable with them. Okay. And sometimes when you put people in that box of expectations, you don't allow them that room to be authentic. So back to your question, it's kind of like saying, if I have information, something that I want to share, that I need to share, it's not in your time, it's in my time, because I have to be the one comfortable to share it, right? Now, if you put an expectation on me, as in I gotta have a time frame to share this with you, then that's you creating an expectation, and I think that's where it becomes a false expectation, because it's not something that's made for me, it's made for the benefit of you.
So let's say that you're dealing with someone that maybe they have, maybe they still married. Maybe they going through a divorce and they're not technically divorced. Maybe they didn't tell you that they had kids. Maybe they didn't tell you they had a STD. Maybe they wanted to make sure you was trustworthy before they let you know that information. Would that be something that after I done invested in you and poured my time into you thinking we building, and I wouldn't have even done that if I'd have known I was getting into this type of situation? And then, it comes back down to like what Efrem was saying, like sometimes he throws those tough things out there just to weed out who can handle the story, who can handle everything that comes with me. I mean, which is it bad to do that? Are you running people away? Or is it wise to do that because you're weeding people out that can't really handle your whole story?
All right, so let's go back to the first part of what you said, which was, if they're withholding something from you that is not of integrity, okay? The minute that that's divulged and you can identify that that's not of integrity, you have your answer right there, right? Just in that moment to identify you held something like I'm married. That's about integrity. That's character, right? Or I'm in a divorce, right? That's character. That's integrity. So those things are being shown to you so that you can make a choice at that point. And normally for me, if somebody's withholding something like that deals with their integrity and character, yeah, I'm probably not going to mess with you because I see who you are. You just showed me. You know what I mean? So there's no need for me to move forward after that. I have my answer. But in the event that it's something personal to them, something that may have happened to them as a child, right, that they still struggle with today, or something about their family, right, that they may not want to divulge to you in the very beginning because that trust and that bond has to be there. That's different. Do you see my point?
I do see your point, but also somebody might be ashamed about those other things. And integrity and expectations is built on the person, because the person that's withholding that information might say, if this relationship isn't going anywhere, I don't want this person having that information about me.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. You understand what I'm saying? This is
so when they do build that relationship and trust, and they decide, okay, now you let me know that you really care about me, so I'm going to tell you this big secret that's going on, and you say, wait a minute, that's integrity and character. You should have told me that from the beginning. They could feel the exact same way about why they kept it a secret as somebody else would about why they went through something through childhood. How do you set that standard? I think that Efrem says stuff like that all the time. It's on a case-by-case basis. Like, you can't judge somebody for what they feel at that moment. Just like you were just saying, they may not feel comfortable telling you that they're still going through a divorce, or that might make you feel like that's something you would have preferred to know. But that could be something that affects somebody in regard to, let's say, I'm dating a woman, I'm a man, I'm dating a woman, she's been through sexual abuse as a child. That might affect our relationship. That might affect her comfortability level with sex or whatever. Like, if she's that uncomfortable with it, they may feel like you should have told me that from the beginning. So again, that gauge of integrity and character could be gauged based on who's judging it.
Not necessarily, because it's like I told you before, it goes back to, once again, expectations. Now, you can set an expectation for somebody all day long. That doesn't mean that they're able to live up to it. Now, on the other level too, Danelle, what I also hear in those statements is judgment, right? Now, if I'm truly with someone, I don't really care what you've been through because the past is gone. The only reason that I want to know is to understand how it may take part in the presence. But what your past and your history and your this and your that is, I don't really give a shit. I'm not dating that. And whoever you were 10, 5, 15 years ago, that's who you were then. That's not who I'm dating. I'm dating who I have now in front of me. So now and today, in this moment, I'm looking at who you are, what your character is, right? Do you stand on your word? Are you a lady? You know what I'm saying? How do you handle your business? Are you thorough? Are you selfish? Are you a giver? Do you provide reciprocity? Those are some of the things for me as far as intangible qualities that I would prefer to focus on that person having, other than some history that doesn't even exist anymore.
Ooh.
So wait a second. So wait, let's dig in real quick, because y'all touched on a couple of things that I'm always thinking about this marketing, because that's what it is. We trying to sell stuff. We selling shit. We're trying to sell ourselves in order to be chosen, or to pick someone. But the catch is with any brand, you have advertisement, branding. They don't put on, like we talking about Danelle. We talking about this on Sunday. They don't put this, these side effects on McDonald's. They don't put disclaimers on McDonald's. The commercials they show typically a family or some kids, thin kids that's healthy looking. They look good. They don't actually show you the side effects of eating too much of that shit, eating too much McDonald's and fries and burgers and all that and soda. Is diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, all this stuff kicks in, but they not finna show you that. It's the same thing with us. When you're dating, you're not trying to show all of these side effects that are going to lower your value on the market. You're going to try to actually, show this product, the advertisement, the delusion. You're selling the delusion in order to bring people in so you can have them purchase you, or you purchase them. You're trying to bamboozle them. That's the capitalism of dating. That's where we at.
You treat yourself as a product. This is why they call it the dating market. Your value consists of what you do, who you are. Your past does matter. It is because at the end of the day, your past can come up and disrupt what we could possibly have in motion. They didn't make that statement, your past coming back to haunt you, for nothing. That's a famous quote for a reason, because we've all seen people's past come back to haunt them in the process of them moving forward in life. Because it may be something that you didn't handle. So to those people who may be in relationships that may not be completely done, or in marriages that they are not divorced yet, but they're trying to move forward with, a new person who has no idea what they're getting themselves into.
But see, Cutta, what you're talking about there, that goes back to what I was mentioning earlier. That goes back to that integrity and that character, because technically, if you just coming out of a relationship, a marriage, or you're in a divorce, you need to be by yourself. You need to be going through some counseling, through healing. Same thing with Danelle when she was talking about young ladies that may have had sexual abuse. You don't need to be in a relationship if you haven't dealt with your issues. You know what I mean? Because when I come to a relationship, I'm talking about coming to a relationship healthy and whole, right? Whole mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, right? I have to be cut on all levels. And because here's the thing, to not be up to par in who you are is giving your partner less of what you are. And if you really love someone and you want to be with someone, right, then you want to give them the best version of you. So why would I come into anything not having worked on my issues? You know what I'm saying? Just for the sake of my ass is lonely and I want some sex or some companionship. And that's why you see a lot of these relationships, as we say, don't work, because most people are broken. And the fact that they haven't done the work to heal themselves, but you moving into a relationship or the next one, it leaves you open to repeat the same thing. And that's why most people continue, you see, to go cycle to cycle, relationship to relationship, and going through the same shit. Why? Because the only thing that changed was the person. You never changed yourself so that you make different choices surrounding the interaction action within the relationship.
We all know in a perfect world, everything you said would be 100, but we know that, come on, this is the red pill part of this.
But also, too, Cutta, let me also add, too, that that's assuming that they haven't dealt with their issues. They could have dealt with their issues and still not want to share it early in a relationship. Just because someone went through sexual abuse as a child doesn't mean that they never had therapy. Just because they don't want to bring it up and tell you about it doesn't mean that that's something that they are not being genuine about. And the same thing about their divorce. What if you're dealing with somebody that's been going through a nasty divorce for 5-6 years? They ain't been with nobody for the last 5 years. They've been working on themselves. You know what I mean? Just because the technicality of the divorce isn't finalized doesn't mean that they haven't done the work on themselves to be independent, to be whole, to be able to move on with their lives. So I don't think that that is the necessarily the definition of you're not ready to move on in a relationship because you have this baggage that you're still carrying and dealing with. But I do think it might be embarrassing for some people to not want to talk about it with somebody that they can't put those vulnerable feelings and emotions in the hands of.
Well, that's what friendship comes into play. Well, and I always say this, and I've been saying it for years, developing a friendship over dating tends to work better in these predicaments. The reason being, dating is what gives you that representative. Dating is what gives you the lies. Because you have not developed a foundation of friendship. You haven't developed what we just were talking about, the trust with each other. You haven't developed anything. All you develop is the fact that you think, you both think y'all are attractive. Okay, this person thinks the woman is attractive. The man thinks the woman is attractive. The woman thinks the male is attractive. Let's date. Let's just jump right into the romantic pool and then hold each other. Instead of developing a foundation first to say, hey, let's establish a foundation of trust, honesty, loyalty, friendship, and then we can get into the romantic part. Romance ain't going nowhere. We know that. It ain't going nowhere. It's
and
there.
That's why it shouldn't be a turnoff when a woman says, let's build something stronger before we have sex. And a lot of guys feel like, you're playing this game. You're playing this game with me. You're trying to hold out and this and that. But no, it's the same thing that you say. If it's too early to have the trust to share with you my intimate moments, it's also too early to share with you my intimate body.
It wasn't too shit. We ain't going. No, well, you know what? Fuck it. Let's go there. Let's go there. It wasn't too early to share with the other dudes. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, don't get to me and play good girl.
But people can get better every day. And when just because you made a mistake doesn't mean you couldn't have learned from it and decided that you didn't want to play that same field the next time.
Hold on, because this is what we need to establish this first. Sexuality, dating, friendship, 3 separate things. I know people today, and we talked about this last week, who can have sex with each other and still be cool with each other. I know people today who have sex with their exes, their baby daddies, their baby mamas, friends, what they call sneaky links, what we were talking about last week, but they have no relationship, no nothing. They have a friendship, but they don't have any romance, anything like that. So let's separate the sex part. Let's, if possible, can we separate the sex part? Because when you start bringing sex into the equation, what happens is you eliminate the possibilities of the growth part.
Well, see, that's what I'm talking about. And I'm not talking about random sex that 2 adults have agreed on. I'm talking about early sex in a relationship when you are dating. You're trying to so-called build a relationship like you just said, it's important to build that friendship first. But a lot of times we want to confuse things by involving the sex and the intimacy and expect the emotions and the expectations to not change because It's too soon for the emotions and the expectations to be too attached and too high, but it's not too soon for you to give me the sex. So that's where I feel like there might be a contradiction in dating, not just the agreement of we both want to just hook up.
That's not what I'm saying. Hold on. Let me touch on that, K-Fred, if you don't mind.
Please.
My favorite quote, this is not yours, so don't steal it. My favorite quote that I made up, it's not when you have sex, it's what happens after. See, what happens is when you have sex, this is where the confusion comes in. You don't talk. There's no communication. So in the woman's head, I wonder if he still likes me like that. Did I give it up too soon? Damn, I knew I shouldn't have sucked it. I shouldn't have let him hit it from the back. Damn, I shouldn't have rolled him like that. Was it too good? Should I let him do that? Does he like me like that? I don't want him to just think I'm a hoe. Well, in a man's eye, he could be thinking anything. He could be thinking, man, I knew that connection was dope. You know what I mean? The sex just made it better. But does he communicate that to her? Does he call her the next day? And do they have that conversation to say, hey, you know what? I know we had sex. We probably would think it's premature, but we're grown. We're grown adults. You got kids. I got kids. We done had all kinds of, but look, let's talk about it. Let's communicate this. Let's open the lines of communication so we can talk and get on the same page as to where we're going from here.
I think that would be a good, mature thing to do in a relationship. But Efrem, we were just talking about this on Sunday. A lot of times, men and women, we have these expectations of women might say, I want a chivalry, a man that knows chivalry and was trained to be a chivalrous man. And I want him to be a provider, and I want him to be a good father, and I want him to be affectionate, and all this and that comes with that old school idea of the good man. And then you got these men saying, I want this woman that is a nurturer, and I want her to be able to cook and be able to keep the house right, and I want her to be able to be a good mother, and I want her to this and this and that and that. But are we feeding that to each other so that we can bring that out of each other? Because oftentimes we're met with that lack of trust that doesn't allow either of us to really be vulnerable to build that. And I think that brings it back to the topic of the question. We say we want the red pill, but how vulnerable are you willing to be to build the red pill?
So wait a second. This is cool because with the expectations, a lot of times, like you gave the example, we'll set these expectations up based off of whatever ideology that we learned or watched on a movie or something, or read in a book or grew up with from our traditions. But then we'll want that and set this expectation, but then we are not the match for that expectation. You got a lot of women and men that want chivalrous women, but they ain't no chivalrous man. And then you got a woman that wants a chivalrous man, but there ain't no chivalrous woman. It coincides with each other. Same thing. You want a Christian man or a Christian woman or some highly religious, but you ain't that. And you ain't even in the market, in that actual market, to find that particular person. If you want that type of person, you got to go to that market. You can't go to a porn store expecting to find some sort of healthy relationship that, you know, in that store. That's not where you find that at. You can't go to a certain store looking for a particular product if they don't sell that product and then you expecting to find it. That don't make no damn sense. But that's right.
Do you have to offer what you're looking for needs? If you want a woman that's old school, old fashioned, all this and that, you don't want her to be loose. You don't want her to have multiple unnumbered sexual partners. You want her to be a stay-at-home woman. You can't find her at the club. You can't find her dancing on the pole at the strip club. And you can't treat her, once you do find somebody that has those qualities, you can't treat them like a punk. You can't treat them like the lesser vessel because you have that control or whatever. Like, do we treat each other the way that we want them to treat us in return? Or do we say, you know what, until I get what I want, I'm going to treat them just like I've been treating everybody else? Because most of the time you have to build what you want. It doesn't come all the way prepared. You might see some qualities and potential, but most of the time our partners don't come exactly the way that we would have wanted them or the way that we get along and mesh together. We have to figure that out together as we grow together. So are you willing to be vulnerable enough to really grow with somebody so where your roots are solid, or do we put up these barriers and walls where we still protect ourselves above everybody else like we do with everybody else in society?
You just explained the modern day dating scene. People don't trust each other. There is no trust there.
No.
There's nothing established.
Okay,
I can't.
Go ahead. Okay, Fred, you've been quiet.
Biting my tongue over here. Y'all know we concrete reality TV. We gonna keep this straight 100. First off, let's go back to the sex thing, right? Introducing sex in a relationship in the early moments of dating someone, you just remove dating from the whole premise. Now the focus is on sex. It's not about learning you. I'm learning when we gonna do it again. That's it. That's the focus. And then I'm learning you in mishaps along the way while we're having sex to find out once I'm tired of having sex with you, I really don't like your ass. Okay. Number two, when you look at people, man, Danelle, I can't go with the Pollyanna. You know me. When you see people, like Maya Angelou said, when somebody shows you who they are the first time, believe it. There's always signs of a person's character and who they are and how they're handling their shit. You can see whether they have integrity. You can see even from the simple part of going out with her. Does she know how to read the menu? These little expectations that you set for people that I talked about earlier that we all go by, right? You can see if they fit that paradigm or not from the very beginning. But here's what you said, Danelle. No, he may not have it all, but I can work with him. We can work together. No, ain't nobody working with nothing to build nothing. Either you coming to the table with everything you need, or you need to go keep working on yourself. But that's where women fall into this whole delusional shit, like they want a project, like they making up a Barbie doll or something. I want to make this nigga into what I believe he can be. No, he is what he is. If that nigga was trifling when you met him, you ain't not gonna not make him trifling. If he ain't a gentleman when you met him, you're not gonna turn him into a gentleman. Only he can do that for himself. But that's the problem, I think, with this whole dating thing that we have now. You get into it based on the sex. Then the women are over here going, well, I can change him. I mean, he got some good qualities. No, bitch, he don't. Sorry.
Well, I agree with that 110% because I tell people and women all the time, when you're presented with a partner or a suitor, you have to ask yourself, if they never changed anything, could you live with them for the rest of their life as who they are today? So I'm not saying change anybody, but what I am saying is looking at the assets that they bring to the table. Do they complement where you're trying to go, your purpose and your assets? No, nobody is perfect. I didn't say I was changing anybody, but what I am saying is we have to mesh together, because I could live in the household with my brothers my whole life or my siblings, and I'm gonna still have disputes with them because nobody is exactly alike. Nobody's gonna agree on everything. And what I mean is when you build someone, it takes that friendship. It takes getting to know each other. It takes building that trust. It takes communication. It takes me learning your likes and dislikes, me showing that effort to invest in you to build that type of relationship. So and then when you see that somebody has the qualities that you could work with, that don't mean change them. I mean the qualities that you don't have to be perfect, but you bring enough assets to the table for us to really do something that we really want to accomplish in life. We can work together and partner together to make this happen. So no, I don't think that anybody should look to changing anybody in order to see what they're going to have in the future, because you have what you have. But I do think that when you're dealing with your negotiables and non-negotiables in dating, you have to understand that every checkpoint ain't going to always be checked off. And that doesn't mean that that's not a real good candidate for you to build a life with. You
mentioned that you're willing to, I guess it depends on the attributes of the candidate. So it depends on the attributes of the candidate on, I guess, what you value them as, on if you're willing to work with them, even though they have flaws on the resume. Wow. Even though they don't meet the expectations of the job, you'll still bring them in for like a temp to perm type of position just to kind of see if they'll work out. I don't know.
Like for instance, let's use a job as an example. Mm-hmm. Let's say that you see a job posting and they want somebody with the bachelor's degree, but you don't have a degree, but you have 20 years experience. And they might say, you know what, we wanted somebody with a degree, but her experience is going to outweigh somebody with no experience just with a degree. So I think I'm willing to compromise on this standard that I had set or this expectation that I had set because I think their experience is going to bring me more benefit.
No, hell exactly. No. You don't. If you set your standards for this position, then these the goddamn standards. But
that's why I say you have negotiables and non-negotiables. There might be, like, for instance, you might say, I want somebody on my wish list. I want somebody that is retired and they got a wealth of money coming in. They don't ever have to go to work. We could live on the beach for the rest of our life. Well, maybe you might not meet that person that's retired for y'all to live on the beach for the rest of your life, but maybe they have enough independence that y'all could still have the lifestyle that you want, but they still got a job. That's not something that's going to be like, well, I can still go on the beach. We can still take trips. He just got to go to work sometime, or she just got to go to work sometime.
But Efrem, here's my issue with this. Because most of the time when you bring back to somebody and you start categorizing these expectations, they're all based around monetary shit. What they do, what they got, what they can provide, what they give. I never hear anything about anything intangible. Is that motherfucker just? Is he trustworthy? Is he laudable? Is he upright? That's what I mean when I talk about integrity and character. There is an intangible value that extends in a person outside of what they got or what they can do. I can give a damn about a woman and what she got or what she can bring to the table. I'm a man. I carry my own table with me, and I'm bringing it for her to sit at. So I can give a damn about what she got. I'm looking at the intangible qualities. Can I trust her? Does she have my back? Is she a good partner? You know what I mean? Is she soft-spoken? Is she strong in this aspect? Is she detail-oriented, right? There's other adjectives that describe the value of people that go beyond the monetary.
I think that that's absolutely right, which is why I feel like when you get, like, for instance, I recently made a post that said that they're about this guy that asked me to go out to Papa Do's or whatever, and 3 times mentioned to me how expensive this restaurant was. And in my post, I was just like, I'm not impressed by anything that a man has to offer because you're not going to change my lifestyle. Anything that I want, I'm going to work hard to get it. Like you say, it's the intangibles. That doesn't mean that I don't value what a man brings to the table, but I'm not looking for the monetary things. I'm not looking for the material things either. I think, in my opinion, the intangible things are more important to me too. But in our examples that Efrem and I were just given, he was using work, I'm using that just as an example. But no, absolutely not. The material things are not more important than those other qualities.
First of all, Papa Do's, we call it nigga Do's in Texas. Papa Do's is not upscale. Trust me, it's not. It
was good food, but I didn't think it was that expensive.
Nah, it's not upscale. I'll say this. Like I said, women and men have different foundational purposes for dating. And it depends on the man. So you have men out here who really are seeking wives. You have men out here who are seeking sex. You have men out here who are seeking developing a true friendship to evolve into a relationship, hoping for marriage. And you have women on the opposite side who want the same thing. The problem we are running into, but I go back to the red pill part, is the honesty part. Who are you and what are you looking for? Genuinely, what do you desire at this point? That's one of my, when I was dating, that's one of my questions to either, I was dating online, offline, it didn't matter. Who are you and what are you looking for at this point of your life? That's one of the main questions. Why? Because if you lie to me, I'm recording all this in my mind. I'm recording everything you say, because everything you say, I'm going to align it to who you are, who you show me. And if it doesn't align, I'm dismissing you. It's that simple. It's really that simple. You tell me who you are. You tell me what you want. And if it doesn't align to your reality, in my eyes, we're done. We ain't got to talk about it. It don't matter when we have sex, none of that stuff, because I'm not bringing sex into that equation. If we have sex, that's a whole nother ball game. We'll talk about that later. But it's still, even after sex, the question still remains the same. Who are you and what do you want at this point of your life? What do you desire from me?
I think that's important, Cutta, because that comes back down to you being comfortable with looking at yourself, doing some self-reflection, like what K. Fred was saying. Make sure you've done the work, going through the healing, make sure you're whole. Because when you reach that point independently, you don't want to water yourself down just so that you can present yourself as what somebody else is looking for. I don't think that when you genuinely love yourself and you're whole, you're willing to pretend to be something else just so that you'll be what somebody else is looking for.
You mentioned, Danelle, we have these dynamic expectations that you have for a candidate, dating a candidate, and then you have these fixed ones. So I get that you have the ones that are movable. They're not just fixed and static. You can move them, a little bit, give or take. It's not something that will I'm going to throw someone out.
It's not a deal breaker.
Yeah, it's not a deal breaker. Perfect phrase. It's not a deal breaker. But you got some other ones that's supposed to be fixed. And you said, I got to have these qualities. And K. Fred, you touched on that. It could be abstract. It could be the mental, that personality. Or it can be something that's, physical, some sort of physical characteristic or some action that they do. I don't know, maybe something on their resume that you got to have. If you compromise those just so you can have someone, because circumstances change, the dating markets, for example, we got to be honest. Women in the dating market, it sucks because, the population is way, way off kilter with what you have to choose from. So you have these, if you put these men, this certain man, this Barbie doll, Ken doll in this perspective, and you say, hey, I got to have this, I got to have that, I got to have this, and he got to be a particular ethnicity or race, then you just knocked yourself into this box of quality over quantity, because you can have something to choose from, but it ain't going to be quality because you just keep narrowing down your expectations. So I'm like, is that why women seem to compromise and willing to take on these projects, like K. Fred said? They take on these extravagant projects where we looking from afar and saying, how you fall for that? And then in her mind, she was like, cause I thought I could change him into what I wanted. But like, that ain't him. You went to the market and picked this dude. That's what he showed you. And then you thought that he was going to change. Because why? Was it because you're lonely?
In the modern day,
I think, honestly, from a woman's perspective, I think that really what it is it boils down to a non-gender issue. Lack of self-love, lack of self-confidence. And I think that whether you're a male or a female, when you are not content totally with yourself, there is a fear of being alone. Number one, you might be dealing with a woman who feels like she's getting up in age. She want to have children and she want to have a family. A man doesn't deal with those thoughts because my grandpa made babies into his 70s. So it's like some things that a woman deals with when she's starting to get a little bit older. Men doesn't always face. Sometimes they may, but they don't always face. But also because it just boils down to the fact that people are not content with themselves. People don't want to be left to themselves with their own thoughts, to self-reflect, to see where they can improve themselves. So they time feel, they void feel. Instead of focusing on what I need to focus on, building what I need to build, I'll go out and go out with my girlfriends, or I'll go shopping, or I'll fill that space with something else. But when you really get content with just being by yourself, you are not willing to settle for good enough.
And
I don't want
wind up by yourself.
I don't want good enough. I want what's good for me. And what's good for me ain't gonna always feel good to me. And I have to know the difference. I have to know where I'm going. I have to know what I need to get there. Am I going to need an airplane? Am I going to need a boat? Or am I going to be able to get there by automobile? And I think that ties back into what Kay Fred said. When you're whole and you know yourself, you know what ain't a good fit for you. And so you're not willing to settle for less. You're not willing to dummy down your standards for something that you know ain't going to make you happy in the long run. You'd rather be by yourself. Why? Because you're genuinely happy by yourself. And if you don't find yourself happy by yourself, like Kay Fred said, you're not ready to be in a relationship anyway. Because you're not in a relationship because you have something to offer. You're in a relationship because you need them. You need them to validate you and make you feel like you're worth being paid attention to or loved or whatever.
Well, ain't that relationship? Ain't that wait.
I'm sorry.
We're getting away from the general aspect of relationships, and like bottom line, why were relationships between women and men established anyway? It's the fact that we do need each other.
It's not that we don't need each other. We need each other whole. You don't need a broken woman who can't offer you what you need in a relationship from a woman. You need a woman that's going to come ready to fill her shoes and fill her role and do her job and be happy to do her job. And so it's not that we don't need each other. By all means, I am not saying that I'm one of those women that say, I don't need a man because I make my own money. I pay my own bills. That's bullshit. I do. And I see nothing but quality in having a man in your life and in your children's lives. But I will say they have to be a man and not just somebody with a penis.
I wasn't saying that.
I'm sorry, then.
I was saying basically that I understand that we are living in a society that promotes that we don't need each other, but of course we do. We complete each other. The couples who've been together for the longest will tell you that, like, marriage ain't easy. You're going to have to deal with that person for the remainder of your life. So every married couple that I know that been married past 20, 30 years fight still. They still have differences. They still have bickering and all that stuff. They might go 2 days without talking to each other and then be like, what you want to eat? And then they right back, to where they were. At the end of the day, we have to get there first. The bottom line, what we're talking about is getting there. We can't even get past dating. And the reason why we can't get past dating, we just explained it during this episode. We have various reasons why we can't get past it. Is it self-centeredness? You mentioned, Danelle, you were talking about I and what I desire. You actually are entitled to that. You have it set in your mind, the man that you want, the man that you desire, just like other women have the same thing set in their minds. But what happens is you're dealing with human beings. You come to the point where you realize they don't have to do what you want them to do. They don't have to be who you want them to be. People graduate to levels in life every day, even while with other people. People, hey, you know what? I live in an unhealthy lifestyle. Me and my girl, hypothetically speaking, me and my girl, we got together. We was doing drugs. We was smoking weed. We was drinking. I got to the point to where I wanted to live a clean lifestyle. Well, she didn't. And now you have to transition to that point in the relationship to where you're like, damn, do we break up because I want to live a clean life and be more healthy, and they want to keep smoking and drinking every day? There's going to be a disconnect there. Mm-hmm. So that now they have a new mountain to climb. And now this questions, this drives a question in a relationship. Is it worth me staying with this person? Because I have a totally separate, different lifestyle. We're no longer compatible.
So one of the things, there's a book.
Sorry, I went there. Go.
No, I love that. I love that, Cutta. You make a great point because there's a book by Khalil Gibran, one of my favorites, and it's called The Prophet. And one of the things I love about his writing in this book, because he deals with relationships from an individual approach, meaning you're whole in yourself. She's whole in herself. So there's a passage in there that says, we both have loaves of bread, right? But I don't have to eat from your loaf. You don't have to eat from my loaf. It's that we feed each other from the loaves that we create, right? And so what that tells me is that if I'm whole in myself, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like I talked about earlier, and I'm dealing with the woman who's whole herself, then we're giving to each other equally. And that's what brings reciprocity. That's what brings true growth, because you're not feeding off of me like some fucking parasite. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We're able to give to each other equally, and that is balance.
Boy, you just said a powerful word. Balance.
And that's why we have to be whole in ourselves before getting into a relationship, or else you're a parasite.
You have to have that balance. If it's not a balance there, and I was told this by an OG, that him and his wife are still together because they created balance within each other. They learned it over the years. They learned it. They went through all kinds of stuff, but through the years, through their marriage, through their trials and tribulations, their issues, marital issues and stuff like that, they learn to create balance within each other. They learn purpose within each other. And it's hard, especially today, because everybody has dating age, what I call dating ADHD. Everybody wants to everything moving like this. Well, because everybody in their minds, they think I can do better.
Mm-hmm.
And the
options are always greener on the other side. My grandfather always said, I don't care who you with, there's going to be a day that you better see them going than coming. And in the modern dating society, like you say, we have so many options. Let's say that I'm trying to build a relationship with one person, but he has this one thing that just gets under my skin, and everything else we good. But then I have another option and they don't have that problem. That doesn't mean that they're not going to have a flaw in another area as well. But sometimes we look at fixing or getting out of the situation we in into something that doesn't have that issue, and we end up getting into something worse. My question is this. When we're dealing with that type of mindset and modern dating, thinking like that, thinking that I'll just get something better, or I'll just get somebody that don't have this issue or whatever, knowing that there's going to come a day that no matter who you deal with, you're going to rather see them going than coming. How do we get beyond the replacement mentality to building no matter what mentality? Because like you say, are we really wanting the red pill? We say that's what we want. We want that type of loyalty. We want that type of connection. We want all that. But are we putting up too many barriers to actually take that red pill? And so we keep swallowing the blue one.
All right. So let me answer that for you, Danelle, because this is what, and I guess we can end it from where we began. And that's why I said it's a bit of both. Because you're always going to have the representative in the beginning for both people. It's going to be the experiences together that will determine if you're getting the most authentic person. If you even get to even have that authentic person, because like you all just described, somewhere in there, they may just dip on you, right? So you never really get to know who that person really is. It's only over time, and it's only through experience that you really get to see the truth in one's authenticity. Other than that, you're always dealing with the representative.
But then if that's the case, back to my question, are we dealing with the representative because we are afraid that they might bounce on?
You're going to deal with that representative, Danelle, until it comes over time. Like we've described in the show, like Cutta said, until you build the friendship, right? First part. Then until you take the time to want to get to know somebody just for who they are without your expectations in between, right? There's layers to building to the authenticity. It just doesn't come right there in the beginning. Ooh, I got an authentic person. No, you only know that over time based on things that you're going to go through. You know what I'm saying? If you can say she's a good woman because she ain't never been put to the test. You can say he's a good man if there's nothing to put him to the test. It's the experience within the relationship that will determine their character, their integrity, and truly who they are authentically. Now, here's the funny part. It doesn't matter whether you like it or not. That's still who they are. Now, whether you can accept it or you can't, that's still no reflection on the person because that's just what? Who they are.
Yeah.
Right. It's a reflection on what your negotiables and non-negotiables are. And
wait a minute. But here's the dangerous part about that. When you start talking about those expectations of negotiables, non-negotiables, your train of thought, and I'll just say this from my own personal example. What I thought was important at 30 is not as important as what I think it is now at 48. So my negotiables have changed based on what? Once again, that experience through life.
Yeah, circumstances.
Right? And the circumstances, exactly. So I have to be careful with placing negotiables or non-negotiables on people when, like Cutta said earlier, everything is ever evolving and changing. Do you see? And that's
I totally agree with that. But at some point, you have to tell yourself whether this person is a right fit for you or not. Just like in Cutta's example, you have to make a decision. If you get clean and they decide they want to stay using drugs or drinking all the time, is this something worth saving or not? So at some point, you have to say something is either a negotiable or a non-negotiable.
So basically, somewhere down the line, a shoe got to turn to a goddamn shoe.
Right.
Damn right.
But here's the thing. You was expecting a boot to turn into a shoe, and that's always been a boot.
Oh, no.
Well, not necessarily, because sometimes when you're in the initial dating process, that's what I'm saying. When you're saying this is a fit for me, this isn't a fit for me, that's saying I could work with this is negotiable, or I can't work with this is non-negotiable. For instance, if I meet somebody and they don't like kids, that's a non-negotiable.
I like kids. They go home.
They go home.
When they go home.
I love them when they go home. I play with you and everything. I play with you. Hey, what's up? Let's throw the football. Let's play basketball. Let's play with toys and all that stuff. Hey, when your mama coming to get you?
Yeah, we appreciate you guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share our content. We thank you for your support. And yeah, we out.
As you can see, I was raised in the street.